What is most effective psychological trick you ever used? Story 1. I always pay attention to what people do when they are trying to do something nice for someone else and do it back to them. For example, one of my friends and one of my sisters are constantly sending people cards in the mail for all sorts of occasions. Whenever these ladies are trying to do something nice, they do it via cards. What I realized is that they, themselves, super enjoy receiving cards and mail. That is why they think it's such a nice gesture and do it for other people. I don't usually send anybody cards myself, but on occasion, I will make a point to send those two ladies cards, and the payoff is always huge. They both get so excited and text me extensively about how much they loved their card. It's extremely cute. Another example is my mom always goes out of her way to set the table in a fancy way for someone's birthday dinner. My mom loves fancy table settings, so to her that is a really great gesture that makes things feel very special. One year I was dropping off a birthday cake for her while she was out, and my husband and I stayed an extra 10 minutes to set the table for her too. We didn't do much beyond putting down a tablecloth and matching plates with the cake sort of artfully placed in the center. But holy cow, the payoff was huge. Apparently my mom was so touched when she came home and saw the table that she burst into tears. This isn't a trick if you're thinking psychological manipulation. It's more if you are trying to think of the most impactful way to show someone your love. Your best bet is to mirror that person's methods of being loving back to them. Story 2. One of my favorite tricks I use on myself is, when I can't sleep, I just curl into the most comfy position, close my eyes, and pretend really hard that it's 6 a.m. and I have to get up. I don't know why, but it makes me fall asleep real quick. Story 3. Giving a friend's child, Tenyo, an illusion of choice to get them to do something you want them to do. So instead of saying, put your socks on, say, do you want these socks or these ones? Or same for dinner, not eat your dinner. Ask, do you want peas or broccoli? They feel ownership of their choice and some control in their life. Kids in general have very little control over their lives and they need practice to make decisions. Story 4. I used this technique at university where I couldn't stand the thought of having to answer questions in front of a group of people. So if you find yourself in a group situation where someone, a leader, tutor, manager, etc., is asking questions that must be answered, and you want to avoid being picked so that you don't have to talk, then here is my tip. If the person locks eyes on you as they ask the question, then just as they are about get to the end of their question, you break eye contact and look towards another person in the room and hold it. Their attention is diverted to that other person just as the question ends and the person they are now looking at feels compelled to answer. If, however, the person starts asking the question while looking at someone else, then look at that other person and hold it so you can't get suckered. Use it sparingly, because if you do it enough on the same person, they will be on to you. Story 5. Visualize the prize. Whatever the goal is, I mentally run through the process and visualize the best-case scenario outcome. Part of that is considering the worst-case scenario, accepting the possibility, and continuing to visualize the best outcome. Are you okay? While undergoing a painful shoulder procedure on that already painful area, I was actively in a mental space of visualizing running through a meadow of wildflowers, full speed on a warm summer day. Yeah, I'm just running through a meadow in my head until this is done. The medtech was really worried that I had passed out on the table and had the doc stop the procedure, which was jarring and painful. Now I warn people, it is like a very effective form of dissociation, I suppose. For good or bad, it works, especially with breathing big. Story 6. When my kids were younger, if I thought they were lying, I would ask them to stick out their tongue. They thought I could tell from the color of their tongue whether they were lying or not. In reality, it was that they would hesitate before sticking out their tongue that told me if they were lying or not. Story 7. When upset callers would rant and start to curse and yell, I'd interrupt with, "Wow, I am really sorry that you feel you have to talk to me this way in order for me to help you. You don't, but I understand. I'll let you talk and then I am going to help you. I'm sorry I interrupted you, you were saying?" They would either apologize, chance their tone, or hang up. I was fine with either on. Story 8. I tell my husband when my teacup is full. This is how I imagine my ability to regulate my emotions and how likely I am to snap at someone. I'll say stuff like, my teacup is almost full, but I'll do my best. When I'm overwhelmed, I can say my cup is full, and he immediately understands what I mean and what that means for a while. We use this with our daughter to some success, where she can at least identify when she's getting overwhelmed before it hits the peak. Then we move into how we can best empty our cup in a way that's not overwhelming and doesn't make others feel bad. After all, screaming might empty our cups quickly, but we're just pouring that energy into someone else's cup. The best part is that because I've used this pretty consistently, I have a better feel for how much emotional bandwidth I have at that moment and can be honest with friends and coworkers. I really want to hear this story, but I don't have much room in my cup. Give me 5 minutes to take a quick break, and when I come back, I'm all ears. It's been great, and I feel like my relationships have gotten better. Story 9. As a front desk worker in a clinic, I handle the vast majority of patients and client interactions. The patient may have to inform about his or her medical background, or else the administration would not file your records. In the past, I had uttered, "Take a look and make necessary changes." They would put up a brick wall against that or just moan about it. Now when I say, it might sound, "Here are the instructions. All you have to do is to make the changes." Shouting it in this particular manner makes one think less of it, and the respondents take the clipboard without a grunt. That was just a little. Story 10. Seasickness cure? Only works on others, won't work on yourself or anyone you tell the secret to. Tell the person experiencing seasickness they need to eat an orange, or any other available random thing. Oranges or other citrus works well for the explanation. Explain that they cure seasickness, and that's why pirates and all the other explorers used to seek them out and always made sure they had some on the ship. Now, the psychology behind it is that nothing truly cures seasickness, but it is mostly caused from your mind being confused by not seeing the horizon correctly. Basically telling the person that an orange or whatever you recommend they eat, drink, causes them to experience the placebo effect, and their brain believes the problem just went away. Used this successfully 5 or 6 times with complete strangers and also on my wife. When we got back from our latest excursion, my wife was the one to repeat it to someone else. Still works for her too. Story 11. At work, when I want a particular outcome from a boss, I don't ask them if I can do a thing. I state that I'm doing a thing, and give a reasonable reason why, and then ask them to let me know if they have any objections. I now get to do far more of what I want than before. Story 12. The Goldilocks effect works wonders. Say you want to convince a person to do a certain task, but you know they're not going to do it unless persuaded. Try this. Offer them a total of 3 tasks, one being your task and the 2 others, slightly more complicated or mundane, longer tasks. The trick here is not to be too obvious that the other 2 are duds. Start with dud task 1 and make it the more mundane, dull one. Then your task, which sounds slightly better, then task 3, which is more complex and demanding of skill and ability. 9 times out of 10, they pick the task you want them to pick, and if not, you still got them doing something you needed done in the long run. Story 13. Seeming to agree with someone's irrational complaints about coworkers or management or the workplace without actually agreeing with them. Expressions like, "I hear ya, seriously?" and "Wow, that's unbelievable," work really well, especially if they've already got a reputation as the office crank and are generally disliked by everyone else. Once they think I'm on their side, they're more than happy to do the occasional favor for me, like fast-tracking some approval process or whatever. Then, as this person and I have more interaction at work, I slowly start dropping tactically chosen factoids into conversations. These lead them back to a reality where they begin to see that what they complain about all the time isn't quite as bad as they think it is. Basically, I provide them with an illusion that they are coming to these conclusions on their own and not being told to change their opinion. If I do things right, within a few months people start engaging with them again. Within a year, they find they have workplace friends for the first time ever and become a generally more pleasant person to be around. Story 14. It is I who never had. However, this seemed to be worth mention. The second person I would like to mention is Darren Brown. He once encountered a drunk, muscular guy who challenged him to a fight. The man said, "What are you looking at?" To which Darren commented, "A 4-foot wall from outside my house." The idea is that the challenged person is thrown off guard and taken out of the state of high adrenaline. Hell for him, he sat down, and a guy then started crying his head off about his estranged girlfriend. This is Darren Brown, so ... IT might not be suitable for everyone else. Story 15. This is how I start the day, by saying hello to everybody I know and I smile at them. The most obvious one is that people sometimes, when they see someone they remember from primary school or even just from the block when they were children, show an awkward smile instead of a bright good day greeting. Do you ever think, If, for example, you bump into somebody every 6 months and both times you notice them and say hello, they will consider you to be an easygoing person. Consequently, so small effort to make you be friendly. Story 16. There are a lot of comments on this, so I didn't read them all, and sorry if someone already said this. So I've had a lot of self-esteem issues, and I read a book where the author said that maintaining eye contact gives the illusion that you are confident. So I started to practice that. Now I am confident, and keeping an eye contact is easy. But when I started, I was surprised how many times people told me, "You seem more confident." Story 17. My sister kept staring at me, which she knew annoyed me. She would always look away before I could catch her doing it. So I faked a yawn. No noise, just the mouth movements. She let out a loud yawn moments later. Knew she was looking at me. Story 18. My son is neurodivergent. If I just go up to him and tell him it's time to go, there's major pushback. If I tell him we're going in 5 minutes, he has a bit of time to prepare for a shift in focus and will happily follow me. This works with anything with him. I've told his teachers, and they find out quickly that you've got to give him that heads up, or it's a major pain in the ass to get him switched. Story 19. Here's a trick that works with my primary school class at school. Whoever does the best job at listening and following directions today will get to be the table cleaner at the end of the day. Means that now cleaning is a reward, and everyone wants to do it. Story 20. I got myself to stop biting my nails by wearing a rubber band on my wrist and snapping it every time I caught myself doing it. After about 1-2 weeks, I completely stopped and haven't bit them in over 10 years. Could probably work for other minor bad habits.